to ARWP, the All Real Wrestling Podcast. And today we have a special guest. All hail Anthony Henry.
Yeah, see, we did well with that. I like it.
Yeah, man.
Good thing.
It works. It works. So let's talk. Let's talk about your journey in professional wrestling. Let's talk about how you started professional wrestling. What made you want to be a professional wrestler?
Sure. So, I mean, it's my whole life has revolved around this crazy thing. So it's really just, I never grew up. You know, I'm just a 38-year-old child still. I started off as young as I can remember. So, I mean, too young for me to remember other things, but I remember professional wrestling. I watched it with my father, and, you know, I just caught that bug, and it never went away. I watched my earliest memories of wrestling were like old NWA stuff. So the Four Horsemen and, you know, Sting and Steamboat and things like that. And, that continued on. And of course, wrestling evolved and changed, but I just stuck with it. I never stopped watching. And I was at an early age also just wrestling with like my wrestling buddies, what they were called at the time, little stuffed wrestling figures in my living room. And that, of course, led to me doing some backyard wrestling, as a lot of people tend to do these days. And eventually I found a school that was actually happenstance, just because we were doing backyard wrestling out in a public place at a park, and a security guard was entertained by it, and he like kind of gave us the input on the fact that there was a school nearby. And so we went and checked it out, me and two of my other friends, and they ended up quitting, but I stayed. Eventually made my way to other places, got some more training, and here we are, like 20 years later. So,
yeah. What's your earliest memory of getting in the ring, like your first match?
I remember my first bump.
Oh, really? All right. How was your first bump?
It was the first time we went down there to the school that was here in Augusta, Georgia. We had to like kind of do our first bump. They wanted us to do our first bump there. We weren't even like in the classes yet. They were just like, all right, we're going to let you feel it out. And so I didn't even try to take a flat back bump because I didn't know any better. My favorite wrestler at the time was RVD. So RVD used to take sick bumps. And so I like landed high in my shoulders purposely. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh boy. Actually wasn't that bad for me, because I was like landing on the ground and all kinds of crazy places, you know, doing the backyard stuff. So that was my first time being in a ring. And then I think the next week we went back and, you know, actually like started doing some things.
All right. And how did, you know, your gear and all that become like what it is? Because now it's like the anarchist type of thing. I like what you had going on during your Evolve days with the trunks. And then slowly at the end of your Evolve days, you started going with like pants wise, like they're kind. I don't know if they're actual jeans. I mean, they look like jeans, but you know,
My first gear, man, I've had some pretty bad gear. So, you know, when I first started, I think I had, and of course at the time the Hardy Boys were a big thing. This was like 2001, 2002. And so they had the big, like, what we call Jinko pants, because that was the popular name brand, but the big baggy pants. Mm-hmm. And so I had some that was somewhat like that. They had like a design on them, and I wore like it's like wife beater, but it was a black wife beater. So it was like a black wife beater with these just baggy pants, some kick pads and whatever. And, you know, eventually I got some real gear. And that, of course, has evolved over time. So eventually I started like wearing these biker shorts, because I wasn't really that comfortable in like wearing the trunks at the time. And eventually I was like, screw it. I'm going to take the risk and try these trunks. So try the trunks, did that for a while. And like really to the point now, it's just, you know, you get a little stale, or you just want to have a new look. Maybe fans are tired of seeing the same thing from you. So I was like, let's try out some, long tights.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of like the way I look in the long tights. That and the fact that, like, there's some just weird people out there who really antagonize me by the fact that I don't wear trunks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it annoys me to the point where I just refuse to wear them at all now. Because they're like, you need to go back to the trunks. And obviously they're insinuating the reasons why they want me to wear the trunks, which is cool. It's whatever. But it annoys me to the point where I'm like, nope, not happening just because you said that. So now, for the time being, I've stuck with the long tights. The pants that you're referring to from Evolve, I made the
I saw you spray painted it, right? I saw the red A.
Yeah, well, I used fabric paint.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, we were doing a thing with Darby Allin and Evolve, and I just wanted something that was similar to him. And so I just went and bought some like stretchy jeans and decided to do my own thing with them. I picked the colors that were similar to his, and I took fabric paint and just did all that myself. And a lot of people actually really like those pants. Surprisingly enough, they cost like $30 in total. So maybe I should just stay away from actually paying hundreds of dollars for tights if that's the case. But that's that. The Anarchy, there's nothing really, there's no deep meaning behind it.
It's just
essentially. Yeah, it's got an extra line for the H. I just thought it was clever at the time, I guess. I don't know. And it's just kind of stuck with me.
No, it looks cool. I think it looks cool because not a lot of people are doing it, so you're the only ones doing it right now, so it looks pretty badass. Also, I don't know if it's a good thing to tell you that I like the actual tights, but not because of how they look. The design. Your design quality is insane. The green ones, the green and brown ones, the mixture ones. Do you come up with your own designs? Do you just like...
No, I can't take credit for that. I have ideas and themes, and I will just get with the person or the company that makes my gear, which is Main Event Gear.
Mm-hmm.
They make a lot of stuff for a lot of people, WWE, AEW, a lot of people. They make all New Day's gear. But anyway, I'm pretty close friends with the main designer there. So I was like, hey, this is the idea I have. This is kind of colors I might have had in mind. Go crazy. And yeah. They come up with these designs, they make everything, and then we're good to go. So I'll leave that freedom with them. I just have the basic idea.
What about the Asher Hale gear? Because that was like the sickest gear I've seen ever. The light blue.
Yeah, that's my favorite gear I've ever had. Problem with that was, so that was kind of inspired by the video game Devil May Cry.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, same people made it, the same person designed it, Patrick Bentley from Main Event. And it was my favorite gear I've ever had. However, the problem was that it actually didn't fit.
Really?
So if you actually watch, if you watch those old 205 Live episodes where I was wearing them, they're kind of like falling off of me because the way they were designed, I think not the inseam, but from the crotch was not long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't long enough, so it would just kind of fall off my waist, and I'd keep pulling them up. And eventually, I was just like, man, I can't wear them anymore. And of course, they took care of it, and they're like, we can remake these, or we can just send you something else, and just kind of send these back to you since it was our mistake, and at least you'll have something in the meantime. And so at the time, it's kind of like when I got released. So I actually had them switch the name on it from the Asher Hale to the Henry. So the current gear I still have, it has Henry on it, not Asher Hale,
mm-hmm.
but they also made a new gear. I haven't worn it, and I probably never will wear it. In fact, I may even end up selling it at some point, unless I decide I want to keep it just for, memories. But I may even at some point, recently, my wife and I were talking about even having that gear remade again when I do get new gear. And, of course, getting all the measurements right, which they will, and having the Henry maybe and adding some things to it.
Yeah, I love the whole design, even with the jacket, with like the ribbed jacket, like that just looked really cool. I don't know. I'm a big gear guy. When I see like gear that's like fire, I definitely. I remember I posted on my story multiple times. I know you reposted too. I love that gear.
Yeah.
Like, that was probably the dopest gear I've seen all around. I hope you bring that back. I haven't seen it, but I hope you definitely bring that back. The color pattern is just dope as hell.
Yeah, thinking about it. We'll see. We'll see.
All right, so let's talk about Evolve, because I think that's the first major thing that started going their way in wrestling, right? Am I wrong about that?
That's fair. I think that's fair to say.
I mean, like what like a fan base wise, like for people to know you consistently, like Evolve is one of those things where they travel almost to the same locations and they have the same fan base that like remembers you, knows you. So how was that like? How was the quality Evolve?
Yeah, so Evolve was like a big thing for me because it was a place I just really wanted to be. When I first like started trying to get into Evolve, and mind you, the roster's always been crazy, but when I was looking into it, they still had like Hero and Gulag and TJP and Thatcher and like all these people, and it very much so fit what I wanted to do with wrestling, style-wise especially. A lot of grapplers and more realism added to the wrestling at the time. Now, I made like one or two appearances here and there, sparingly, while that roster was kind of still intact. I didn't actually make a full-time run there until after most of those people were already gone. But it still was just a place I wanted to be, and that was a goal. And so it happened little by little. I was on one show, and I actually wrestled Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like Evolve 70 or something. And it was just like a one-off thing. And Gabe liked me enough. And I ended up coming back later for like a tryout, like seminar thing they were doing. Did one of those and ended up coming back like maybe a couple shows or a couple months later. I wrestled like Riddle and I wrestled, I don't remember what the other match was now, actually. I know I wrestled Riddle. I know that one. And again, he liked me enough. Nothing was like offered at the time. Then they made their way to North Carolina, which is a place that, I wrestle a lot in. JD Drake wrestles a lot at. And they teamed up with PWX, which is a place that is like another home to me. And so they did like a dual show. So we had PWX earlier and then Evolve, and they split the show. And because we were in our hometown, they put JD Drake and I together randomly against Jaka and Chris Dickinson for the tag titles.
Mm-hmm.
And because also we were in the hometown, Gabe was like, all right, we're just going to make this crazy change and see what happens. And so they put the belts on us that night. And it got over so well that it was like one of those things. Gabe was like, well, I kind of booked myself into a corner now because it got over so well and I didn't expect that. And so I can't just take the titles back off of you. So basically from there on, we were full-time with Evolve, though we didn't like sign the contract or anything like that. I don't even think we signed a contract for like a full, almost like a year into us being on every single show. And of course, like we teamed for a long time, then they split us up and we did our own things. And I would say that my time with Evolve was, and I think JD would be of the same opinion, is that we grew more there than any other point in our career, up to this point at least. Mm-hmm. And it was just a great place to be, honestly. I mean, I said this on like social media the other day, because of the unfortunate releases that happened recently, and Gabe was one of those. And, people are weird about Gabe. It's like, they love him or they hate him. And there's a lot of hate. And my opinion has always been that Gabe did nothing but support JD and I. He helped us when he didn't have to help us. He pushed us, made sure that we, quote unquote, evolved. And he's the whole reason why I got my job, why I'm still wrestling, because I was going to retire. And he brought me back to come to WWE. And, so I owe a lot to him, honestly. And he's always been cool to me. My time at Evolve was great. I learned a lot. I had a lot of great moments. Fans were great. I grew exponentially. I have nothing but positives to say, honestly.
Yeah, you just gave a lot in there that we have to like cut into pieces. Talk about
Sure.
retire. All right. So first thing you brought up was Darby Allin. That was like the first thing you brought up at Evolve, and I want to acknowledge that because you had one of the craziest rivalries with Darby that influenced so many of Darby's future rivalries. When people want to put on his face paint and do the whole thing, which was amazing.
I did it first. I did it first.
Whose idea was that? Was that your idea to go like, oh, I'm gonna wear the face paint?
Yeah, that actually was my idea. I don't know. It was kind of like so I draw a lot of inspiration just from, various things, various medias, and like obviously, I'm a big comic book fan. I'm a big fan of Venom, and Anti-Venom is part of like the whole Spidey verse, and essentially like I don't want to get into obviously my dogs are going crazy. I don't want to get into like the biography of Anti-Venom, but basically the character ends up being the reverse of Venom. So he has instead of the black base with the white lining, he has the white base with the black lining. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's pretty cool, and what if I did like the opposite of what Darby does? And so that kind of ended up being the thing. It was like, I think the first time I painted my face and did everything exactly like him, but then in the big match that ended the feud, I ended up wearing the opposite. So he wore black, I wore white, everything, and then I did the opposite face side of the paint, and I did the opposite colors of the paint, and that was kind of the whole idea behind it.
No, it was an awesome rivalry, awesome match, and really sick idea on your end, because that influenced so many in the future. So it was really cool that you did that first. And I watched, I was like, oh wow, that's really cool just to see, like you said, Anti-Venom. I'm a comic fan too, so I got exactly what you mean with the reference. So yeah, it's really cool to see stuff like that. All right, next thing we want to talk about is you talked about retirement, and this was before the WWE call-up, correct?
Well, there's a couple of different ones. Okay. The last one, the one that where I actually got signed, that's the one everybody knows about for the most part. But the one that caused me to want to retire was actually the first one, which was me doing a tryout. The tryout not going my way because of an injury I sustained at the tryout. Mm-hmm. And then from there, basically, I did a little bit of work with them, and they basically ended up saying they weren't interested in me any longer, and I was pretty much on the verge of like signing this contract, and it was due to just like a little medical thing that I did that the doctor assumed because of some answers that I gave for questions, that I was a liability due to some undiagnosed concussions that I had in wrestling matches, which is whatever, because if you're a professional wrestler, you've been hit and you've probably had some form of a concussion, but I know now not to be honest maybe anymore. I don't know. But that's kind of what caused the retirement. I was depressed and I didn't know what I was going to do with my career at that point. And that combined with the fact that Gabe was working with WWE, and because of that, he no longer wanted to have me work for him because of the connection and how it would look on Evolve if WWE didn't want to use me, but Evolve did. Yeah. So yeah, I had nowhere to go and didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just kind of hated wrestling at that point because of all this, and I was going to retire.
I can't even blame you with that story. That's really messed up, especially like with all your connections. Like, hey, since these people didn't like you, we're going to have to kind of cut you from this, and that's terrible. You know what I mean? That's where you built a lot of your relationship. I'm sorry to hear that, but obviously down the road, something good had to happen. So what made you want to come back? I guess, like I said, that's hard. No disrespect there to wanting to retire. What made you want to come back?
I didn't want to, honestly. So you got to also keep in mind that this is kind of like in the midst of like the pandemic happening. So like this stuff's happening, the whole world's going crazy. The whole thing with WWE happened, and I was already pretty much like, I'm going to retire. So basically I was like, cool, what I'll do is I'll do a few matches that I want to do before I go and get those done. And then once they're out of the way, that'll just be it. Kind of like a retirement tour, even though I wouldn't say it's retirement. I haven't done enough to retire, but going away tour. Anyway, so as soon as that, I'm kind of finishing that up. I'm like in my last month of doing this. I have like just a few more matches set, and that was it. I get a call again from Gabe, where he's like, "Hey, dude, so do you still want to retire?" was like, well, it kind of depends on what. I mean, obviously you're calling me for a reason, so what is the reason?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically it was for a tryout again. This one, as opposed to the other one that I did, was going to be different because this one was going to be an actual wrestling tryout, whereas most of the other tryouts were kind of like, hey, let's put a bunch of athletes together and have them do a bunch of cardio and like see who quits and run them like we're drill sergeants, yada yada. This was going to be like a, hey, we're going to put you in professional wrestling matches and see what you can do, etc. So I still didn't know if I wanted to do it though, and talked to my wife, and my wife's like, no, you need to do it because you've done this your entire life almost, at least your entire adult life. So, if you don't do it and you don't see it out, and then 10 years down the road, you're disappointed with yourself and upset about it, like, you're just going to beat yourself up. So you just need to go ahead and do it and see what happens. And so, all right, we're going to do it. So go do it. And I guess the rest is kind of history. I got signed, and here we are.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that you brought it up, and again, you just bring up a lot, and we got to cut it out. So, the original thing that you did, the original tryout, the way you described it is the way that a lot of people see it as, like, oh, drill sergeants, they're gonna make you do squats and then jumping jacks in a line and stuff like that. Like, they showed that. What kind of tryout was that compared to this one? What's the difference in both those tryouts? Like, what was meant to be?
No, I got you. It's very different, and I'm sorry about going off on tangents, but all these stories are like, there's a lot that has just happened, so these questions are like just lining up perfectly.
No problem. I love this as a conversation.
I can't leave a detail out.
Yeah.
So so the tryouts are vastly different. The tryouts that everybody assumes what the tryout is exactly what you said. It's kind of, hey, let's see who will quit. And there's, I could probably name, I don't know, off the top of my head, there may have been 10 or so professional wrestlers in my first tryout that had probably like, man, I don't even know. Like, there were so many people there. Definitely over 50 people in that tryout. A lot of them were just athletes and like from different sports. And so they're literally learning how to roll and do some of the things that we need to do in professional wrestling on the fly. And I think it's more about like, hey, let's just push these people as far as we can and, see who quits, which is, yeah, I get it. Like, if you want it bad enough, whatever. But I mean, it's not a real professional wrestling tryout because they don't really care that it doesn't matter if you're a good professional wrestler or not. It doesn't matter if you quit or not and whatever. So compared to the second tryout was like specifically for wrestlers. They didn't try to kill us on cardio. Yeah, we did some of that, but it was nothing crazy. It wasn't like, hey, let's destroy these guys and see if they quit. It was more just like, let's go through some technique. Let's just see where everybody's at as far as stuff that we would normally do in matches, etc. And then like we had a whole other day that was nothing but like matches and like TV, like mock TV type stuff, some promos, stuff like that. And I think that tryout was more designed just to see who would mess up. Who would mess it up for themselves, because I think the intention was for most of those people to get signed out of the second tryout. Less than half of them ended up getting signed, but that's a whole other story. But it was much better experience the second time around.
And obviously, when did you get the call that you got? Because that was the tryout that you got, right? After that tryout, you got signed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I remember. Again, I'm just going on a tangent as well. I legit remember getting the news alert that you were wearing the Performance Center shirt, the WWE shirt and all that, and I was so happy for you and all that. When did you get the call, or when did you know? Because I'm sure we found out way after you knew that you guys signed.
Yeah, it was. So honestly, I knew the last day that I was there. I knew because I kind of, things get around. I'll just leave it at that. Like, basically, somebody told me an inside scoop, and I knew the names that were on the list to be approved to be signed, and I knew I was one of them. And so, of course, you don't like necessarily believe that though until like you actually hear it from one of them. And so I had this in my head, but I wasn't 100% on it. And then we got a call, I think maybe within like a week. They said 3 days. It ended up being like a week. And got the call from the former, I don't know what his title was, but Canyon was the guy who hired me. Video call just like this, and they're gonna hire me, and for more money than I thought I was gonna get initially too. So that was really cool, also. And so I knew, and it took forever for like everything to finalize because they had to send the contract, which was like this, and then I had to go through the contract, send it back to them, and like all that stuff, and then it was like, all right, you wait some more. So it was like in between each step was like you wait freaking 2-3 weeks, almost feels like a month. And I don't even know when the actual story hit officially. Probably like 2 or 3 months after I knew. So yeah, I knew a good bit ahead of the story.
All right. So how would you describe your experience there? I mean, obviously, you know, everyone has a good experience, but is there anything specifically that you did or you asked for and they just didn't acknowledge? Because again, you had a good run. I was 100% supporting. I wanted to see more. It sucks what happened. Obviously, you're doing bigger things now. We're going to talk about who you've been facing in the meantime. But how did that atmosphere feel in WWE?
Yeah, so the actual performance center, my time there was not bad per se. I learned a whole lot. I became a better professional wrestler because I was there. I think that I had some good performances for what I was given. I think that I got the most out of what I was given. There are some problems, but I mean, I can't hate the facility or like the interactions I had with the coaches or anything like that because it was all positive. So I don't want to go into more stories or side rants.
No problem.
So, I mean, there's things we could talk about, like my injury. There's things we could talk about, like the actual release. You just let me know what you want to talk about. But my experience is positive.
All right, no problem. So, one more thing, again, concerning this topic, was the last, the one that you called, your last, I'm blanking for a second. It was the retirement. After the release, you posted formally on Twitter that you are potentially going to be retiring. If I'm not wrong, I think you did it on Twitter. Do you remember?
I don't remember actually saying that I was going to retire after being released. I know for sure.
No, it was a little bit time after that because there was a whole stage. I mean, again, the way I was following you, I remember there was a pretty sad moment after the release, like you a little bit less active, more. I mean, it's one of those. It's a bad situation. You know what I mean? When you lose a job or you're out of pocket due to the dumbest reason, which is COVID. That sucks. You know what I mean? Like. So I'm sure you went through some kind of not trauma, but just like depression in a sense. You know what I mean? I'm sure that hit, and I feel like I remember you tweeting it. But if you don't remember, then I could be wrong about that. So
I don't remember. I just don't remember tweeting about retiring after the release. I know definitely for sure going.
It was something about the new year. It was something about the new year. Like this might be my last year or something. I remember.
I said that recently. I actually. Basically, for me, it's like I go back and forth with this, and I definitely don't want to be that person that's fans are just like, hey, shut up. You're either going to quit or you're not, because it always, there's so many people who it gets to that point. It's like, all right, make up your mind. For me, it's been a touchy subject because it's all I've known for all my life, since I was 18 is when I started. And, I'm 38 now. That's 20 years of my life, 20 years. And that's my whole adult life. All I've known is wrestling. And I've given everything to this, and I've loved it and I've hated it. And I've felt all kinds of different ways about it. But it's just it plays with your mind and the ups and downs. And I had some big ones. And so, and just things that wake you up and before I was released, I don't want to go on a side rant again, but I got hurt while I was at WWE, and it was a bad injury. I ended up working through it, and now I've kind of been told maybe I shouldn't have worked through it through other professionals, which makes me more angry because I put my health at risk for this job that they just kind of threw me away, And I'm not angry at the the business. I'm not angry at the fact that, like, you know, I got released. That's part of doing this. But the fact that, you know, I put myself out there and got hurt, and it didn't seem like it mattered. And I worked through these injuries. The whole time I was on TV, I had herniated discs in my cervical spine.
Really?
You know,
I had no idea about that.
And,
Wait, what
what
match did you get injured? What match did you get?
I got injured before I even had a match on TV.
Really?
So I was in the PC for maybe a month, because it was only about a month before I was on TV, maybe a little longer, maybe 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I got hurt right before going on TV. And my first the debut was NXT, and you know, I was very limited my whole time having these matches, and so I do think I got the best out of it. But it's also hurtful because, you know, I went through all this, and I never had the opportunity to be at 100% and actually show them like what I could 100% do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. What I can be upset about is the fact that, like, you know, I uprooted my daughter and took my whole family to Orlando, where I had no friends, no family for this job. And I feel like I wasn't like let loose. I was never given a real opportunity because of everything that happened. You know, I was there for 7 months, and, you know, I had to make a decision really quickly, like, hey, what do we do? We're in Orlando, and I no longer have a job. So I had to bring my family all the way back home. And it's been a wild ride. And so just kind of circling back around to the topic that we're talking about, the retirement, is like, these are all the things I've dealt with and had to put my family through. And it's like, you know, I don't want to continue doing that. I have other things in life that I want to accomplish as well. Like, I have degrees that I could be using that I have kind of just put on the back burner, and career paths.
What did you study?
So it's a nonstop studying process, it seems like, but I have a associate's, of course, because you just get that because I got a bachelor's in health and wellness, which is kind of a general kinesiology degree. I have a master's in public health, which is, that one is hard to describe. You could do a lot of things with that, and epidemiology, amongst other things. And then I have another master's in essentially human performance. So it's like an athletic trainer. And so, yeah, I have a lot of other things, and I'm nearing 40. So retirement is a thing that keeps coming up. And for me now, it's just like, okay, I have this job where I was making a substantial amount of money, doing what I've always done, and it kind of has paid off. I have a nice house. I have like a place for my daughter to just go walk right across the street to her high school, which is awesome. I ain't got to worry about, you know, her getting picked up or anything like that, because all the kids walk to school because it's safe. I have all these things going on, and then it stops. So now you go back to independent wrestling, and yeah, I'm making good money when I have good weekends, but it's not guaranteed ever. It's not concrete. You never know when you're going to be booked and when you're not. You just may not be able to get a weekend of shows. And so I want a contract, and I think, not that I deserve it, but I've earned that to this point, and I'll continue to earn that. And hopefully somebody will see that, and, you know, I can take advantage of that. But I did say, if the contract doesn't happen, that this probably will be my last active year pursuing this like full time to the degree I have been. That doesn't mean I'll stop completely. It just means that I'm not going to be out here killing myself every single weekend, you know, pursuing this as my main career.
All right. Yeah, you know, it makes a lot more sense now when you say, like, you're retiring. You're not retiring for yourself. You have responsibilities. You're a father, that you have to think about your family more than yourself at the time. So it's, again, 100% understandable to retire. It's not like a weak thing to do when your sacrifices are affecting other people. So by you saying you moving all the way to Orlando with your family just to move back, you know, obviously probably beat yourself up for that. You know, that's one of those things where it's like, you can't control life when that happens. But what I do want to talk about is what you've been doing. Because let's be honest, you've been having a big dream list of wrestlers that you've been crossing out on. We got to talk about Minoru Suzuki, that's one. David Richards is another one. You're going to be facing Tom Lawler at Warrior Wrestling. That's another one. So where do you want to start from your independent, now that you're back? What was like the first match for you back that was, you know, enjoying again? Like you enjoying independence again?
Yeah. So definitely Minoru Suzuki, and I am moving at this point because my dogs won't shut up.
No problem.
Yeah. So fans, I'm sorry if you hate this. But yeah, Minoru Suzuki. So I came back and I did one show before the Minoru Suzuki match, and it was fine. But this match with Minoru Suzuki was a big one for me because, a few reasons. Because it was the main event of a show at PWX, and PWX, again, from an earlier conversation, is like one of my homes. So it was my first match back there, and we were main event. The place basically sold out, which was nuts. And so we had like 500 plus people in this place. And it was the first match I had back where I felt like I was me again. And not that WWE purposely changed me. You have so many different directions you're pulled when you're there that you don't necessarily know what is wanted from you, because each coach kind of has their own way of doing things, but you're trying to appease everybody. So in the context of what I do, I had to change a little bit of me, and it's just, I got to wrestle Minoru Suzuki and just be me. I didn't have to worry about, coaches looking at this. I just go out there and do what I do and feel it and be invested emotionally into it. And it was just such a fun experience. And he was such a cool guy. And that was the one that was like, all right, when I first got back, and maybe this is what you're referring to, is like I didn't know if I wanted to stay or not when I first got released. And this was the first match where I was just like, you know what, if it's like this, yeah, I can do this for a long time.
Yeah,
it was great.
And I remember you saying that was legit like a dream match for you. That was like one person on your list that you really wanted to get in the ring with. One, because you guys have one of the same like wrestling style, strong style. I mean, you're a technician also, but like you and him had an amazing match. Anyone can check that out. I think it's on YouTube. I watched it on Is it on IWTV? I don't remember if it was on. No, it's on their own network.
I don't think it is yet, but like PWX has just recently joined IWTV, and so I think there might be a possibility of them adding that on to their library that's there. I know it's on YouTube randomly from like a fan who had caught footage of it, and he decided to tell me when like the next show. I was like, hey, I was like, yeah, that was you, huh? Cool. I don't know how the company feels about that, but cool. But it's there. I don't know how, I didn't watch it, so I don't know how good the footage is of that, but it is also on like the PWX, if they still have that open. I don't know if they do because of the IWTV deal, but it was streaming on their platform as well.
All right, but yeah, that match was awesome. I'm not going to give away who won, but they could check that out whenever they're done watching this. Next match I had that was really cool was Davey Richards. Again, another guy who's got the same, strong style as you, and a little bit more technician level like you. So, like, you guys are very similar in the ring. How is that like facing a legend like Davey Richards?
Yeah, another great one. Davey was someone who, at least in America, I think helped cultivate this style a little bit, because obviously it's been a big thing in other areas for a long time, specifically in Japan, but like in America, he's one of the ones that kind of helped it become popular. And I remember definitely watching, back in the days of his Ring of Honor days, watching him do this stuff and was amazed. And him alongside guys like, Low Key and I'm trying to think, obviously Bryan Danielson later on and like other guys like that, like that was what I wanted to be. I saw those matches and I'm like, yeah, like that's it. And so getting the chance to wrestle him after all these years was pretty cool. And I think another fun match, another match I enjoyed a lot. I know he enjoyed it a lot. And stylistically, we are very similar, so it worked out. And actually, I'd love to do it again at some point, and hopefully we will.
Yeah, so you brought up the fact that you do want to sign with the company, and again, I'm sure New Japan is one on your mind, or Impact, Ring of Honor. I mean, I feel like you would have been fitting perfectly for Ring of Honor. Sadly, they had to shut down. Maybe they'll be back, and I hope you go there as well because I just feel like your style works with Ring of Honor. Or New Japan. Strong style works with anywhere. But is there any company that you specifically have been? I don't want to ask you if you've been talking to any company, but it's like, have you been interacting with certain companies? Is there any like conversation going back and forth?
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
I would say so. I won't name specifics,
Yeah.
obviously, because
Yeah.
who knows what'll happen. And New Japan's a weird one because like that would definitely have been the place like a couple of years ago that would have been my number one. It was definitely my number one before WWE. It's like Japan was always my goal as a professional wrestler. That's what I wanted to do. It just didn't seem feasible. It's not the easiest thing to find an in to another country, especially like Japan. So I took what was given to me, which obviously was WWE, which was still awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and another dream, but just not what I wanted specifically. Now I don't know that like that's really as much of an option because of COVID. Is kind of a hard thing, right? To be sent over to another country and work full time for another company that's in another country. So I'm open to a lot of places. Honestly, I'm open to anything. Main thing for me now at this point, and as selfish as it may sound, is money.
Makes sense.
If I'm going to continue to sacrifice and do these things, put my family through this, it has to be worth it. And that's why I said, like, I need a contract that's going to make it worthwhile for me to stay. And if it's not there, it's not there, and it's not meant to be. But, like, that's just where I'm at. At 20 years in, that's where I'm at. It has to happen, or it just, it's got to be the end. At least full time, like I said.
Yeah, your dream could still happen because a lot of good things came out of that year, the hardest year of people's lives, and one of it was New Japan Strong. That's its own branch, own company in the U.S. now with a whole bunch of stars. Have you been like looking at New Japan Strong as like an option? Have you been following on what they do and how they run their show?
No, yeah, I definitely follow it. And I've even had some contacts there and stuff. And here's the thing: is just like, one, I don't know that New Japan Strong specifically on their own does like contracts, which again is kind of my number one objective right now. Is like, yeah, working for there would be awesome, and I would definitely do it, but long term, I need guaranteed money at this point. But I would love to work for the company, and if they started doing contracts, that'd be great. I just don't know if that's something that's going to happen right now. Ring of Honor, actually, I just saw was coming back for the Supercard show, like in Dallas. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing that continues. I think Ring of Honor would be another great place that I would fit in, like you said. But it's all a matter of I'm just giving myself up to the gods, the spirits, if you will. I'm not going to put myself out there too far, but like I'm open to whatever. So if there's interest from a company that is willing to invest in me, then I'm willing to invest in the company. Is basically what I'm going to say at this point.
No, yeah. The most recent thing that I'm sure people seen you do was AEW against Eddie Kingston, and there was something very different. When I still watch the match over and over again, just because of how good you actually made that match. When you watch dark matches, you see a good 1 minute, 2 minute, demolish of a match, or just show off how much you could do. You, on the other hand, put off a good match for Eddie Kingston. You did so much in that match. How did that come to be? How did you transition to work for AEW Dark?
Yeah, so they actually contacted me after the release and asked, when my deal was up, when my no compete clause was up, and it happened to coincide with them doing the tapings. In fact, it was like 1 day after, I think, or something. And so I was like, yeah, I'll come down, because I was still living in Orlando at the time, and the tapings were in Orlando. And I was actually in the process of moving all my stuff up. My friends who care a lot about me and flew all the way to Orlando just to help me move all this stuff and get in this U-Haul. They were like, don't worry about it. We will get all your stuff in this truck. You go do AEW and see what happens there. And so I went down there and, found out I was working with Eddie. And obviously I know Eddie Kingston from Evolve and stuff. And Eddie and I are fairly close. And so I would say that, like, part of that match being so good is because of Eddie and how giving he is. Part of it's also because they were giving a look at me and wanting to see what I can do. And I think everybody was pretty happy with the match. It didn't work out at the time mainly because I was moving and the tapings were in Orlando. And I was at the time just not able to make the trip from where I am now to Orlando all the time and get there. I have been there a few more times afterwards. So far, nothing has officially worked out or anything, but I'm hoping that that's still an option, and we'll see. I still have contact with them, and so we'll see what happens going forward.
So after your match, they basically said, hey, if you're in the area, come back and do more? Like, they basically wanted you to do more?
Yeah, the Darks, yeah, for sure. Which, kind of like, it seems to be the way they work, unless it's like, just a big name coming off of something like an Adam Cole, which I have no problem saying I'm not an Adam Cole, popularity-wise. So unless you're like that, the way in is you kind of work your way up, just like you would any place, and that's fine. And the way in is dark. And like guys like Anthony Green, that was his first time there, and he's had several more appearances since then and has been on Rampage and things like that. That's kind of the way you work your way up, and I just couldn't do it at the time. They did offer it. It just wasn't something I could personally do at the time.
Mm-hmm. How about now? If they offer it now, would you be able to, or it's still one of those situations?
Well, like I said, there's still communication going back and forth. So, and I have been present at some of the AEW shows with some things in mind. It just hasn't come to fruition quite yet. So, in the future, I am hoping that can see all that. That was fingers crossed. I'm hoping that we can make that work in the near future.
Have you had I don't think it's like a big deal, but have you had matches that haven't been shown? Have you done more stuff? No, not yet. That was the only thing so far. Because it was just so good. I want to see more. Like that was a really good match. I really enjoyed that match. Everyone should check out
appreciate that, and I'm hoping for the same. So we'll see.
All right, so let's talk about another thing you did recently. You battled Alex Zane, your old 205, rivalry member, and I'm gonna spoil it. You picked up the victory on that one. So talk about that. How was that like? Getting to face him again, but this time no restrictions, no people watching you, rating you. How was that like?
No, yeah, I actually requested partially like they wanted to bring him in, but I also requested specifically, hey, let me have him. Mm-hmm. And so, we got to work, and we had one match on 205 Live, which I thought was actually really good. But again, like you said, you are a little bit limited in some ways, and we could just kind of go crazy. We didn't go crazy because I feel like it's going to happen again. And I'd rather have something in the tank for when we do it at a bigger time. We were opening match for this show, and so, I don't want to steal the entire show every single time. I'm actually one of those guys now. It's like, hey, there's other matches that have to happen, so I'm not going to be that person. And so we had a good opportunity to have a good match, and I think we did so. We'll eventually make it to a point where we have a match that's like in a position where we can just go wild, and we'll do that at that time. So we'll see what happens. But I had fun as always. Alex is a great guy. He's one of the only few guys actually that I hung out outside of the PC with a few times. So
that's awesome. And something I didn't bring up and I want to bring up was when we talk about New Japan, we talk about something that you want to do at one point when things will actually work out for that point. What faction would you join? What faction would be your? I mean, I'm sure you thought about this yourself too.
Not specific, not really, because I've never really gotten too much into I know it's always been a big thing in Japan for these various factions, but I've always watched just for the matches. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily get too caught up in the various factions and stories going along with those, but I would have to be a NATO guy.
LIJ.
I think.
All right.
I think personality-wise, that would fit me more than the others anyway. Is to be a part of that group. So that would be what I would go with just right offhand.
All right, it's a very interesting group actually. Lij. Okay. All right. All right. Back to the main topics. So now that you are still, wrestling independently, and we need the checks, we need the money. Who do you want to face? Who do fans tweet at now? Promotions, wrestlers to get in the ring with you. Who do you want to face in 2022?
There's so many guys now, and girls, who are great, and even like since the time that I went and got signed, like there were certain people that were kind of being spotlighted before I left and went to WWE, and then I came back and there's like these whole other group of people who are like now in the spotlight, and I'd never seen, and so it's crazy how that happens, but there's so many, and I can name a few off the top of my head, but then I'd be like forgetting some, and I definitely want to get in there with Josh Alexander at some point because I think he's like elite level at this point. I'd like to also have a rematch with Gresham at some point. There's Daniel Garcia, there's Lee Moriarty, there's so many people. I just recently had like my first real, I would say, like intergender match with Masha Slemovich.
Really? What company?
Yeah. So it was for Action Sup during the Festival deal they had on IWTV. You can check that out. It's there. So that was fun. So there's so many people. For me now, at this point, it's just more about doing the most I can as an independent wrestler. And that's all about, for me, I feel like to be a great independent wrestler, you have to just go and do everything you can. And so I'm more about like trying to get out there to as many different places as possible, as many different areas and regions. And so for me, it's more about wrestling places I've never wrestled. And I can name off a bunch of companies as well. And some of these I've contacted, and we'll see what happens. But there's just so much. And I've been lucky enough, like I did PWG earlier this year. That was great. Or not earlier this year. It was last year. Last year. But yeah, there's other places like, that are killing it now, like Prestige, and like some of the places are on the West Coast, like West Coast Pro. And there's places on this side, and Gresham now has Terminus that he just started, and Ring of Honor might be a thing again. So there's so many different options now. I just want to be everywhere, honestly. Give me the best, and give me the best company so that I can go out there and do my thing in front of the most people. I just I'm doing Warrior. We mentioned that kind of earlier. That's another one that I'm starting with. So I just want to be everywhere.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's a pretty big one. Warrior Wrestling has been doing a lot lately. And that's your debut to Warrior Wrestling, which is pretty awesome. So all the fans are going to see for the first time there. And you're going up against someone like Tom Lawler, and I'm sure you've seen his work, and I'm sure you are excited to get in the ring with him. What's going through your head coming into that match?
Nothing. It's another opportunity to get in there with somebody who can go, and it's obviously it's a very good match for me stylistically. It's a good way to showcase what I do. Because we both kind of have a similar style as well. Mm-hmm. And so he's a beast. I like to think I'm a beast. And so I think the fans watching are going to get a great show.
That's awesome. And how did Warrior Wrestling come to be? Because that's one of the companies that, really worked their way to the top to be one of those big name, independent companies. So how did that connection come with Warrior Wrestling?
Yeah, so I mean, one, as an independent wrestler, we're always going to be, or at least we should be, sending out our resumes, sending out feelers to get with the companies that are doing things, right? That's kind of the name of the game. It's like you can't just expect these companies to come to you, no matter where you've been. It doesn't matter. There's so much talent out there. They don't need anybody. Most places don't need anybody, But it's our job to put ourselves out there and try to get this work. And so I'm always doing that. But yeah, I've talked to Warrior Wrestling on and off here and there for a few years because Drake and I, as the Horesmen, used to wrestle very frequently for Freelance Pro in Chicago, and Warrior Wrestling is kind of in the same general area. I know that promoter, or one of the promoters, has come to some of those freelance shows liked what they saw, and we were talking at various points about coming in. It just never happened. And so since that time, they've grown and done bigger things. And so now we just made contact again. I, of course, sent out a message like, hey, I'd still be interested in coming down. They got back with me, and there's going to be more stuff coming along the way. This is not going to be the only one. This will be the first one, and hopefully we'll make it a place that's, very frequently that I go to. I'm excited. I haven't been in that area in a while too, and so that used to be a place I was at like every month almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm very excited to see what you're gonna do at Warrior Wrestling with the talent that they have and the capacity that they could do with creative ideas. I can't wait to see what everyone's gonna do with that show. It's 18, Warrior Wrestling 18, so it's gonna be a nice one. All right, now let's get to the last thing, and that is tag team wrestling. The first thing I noticed that when you got released is you brought up that now you can tag with JD again. Now you guys can do what you love to do. So how did that come back? How did you message him, or did he message you about, hey, let's start tagging the indies again? Now you guys have.
So we're legit, really, really, really good friends. So we never stopped talking. Mm-hmm. In fact, we'd complain about our various situations from time to time, while I was gone. So, things that would come up in the wrestling business, and we'd talk. So we never lost contact. It was just a matter of, hey, I'm free now. And mm-hmm. with his current contract status with AEW, he can kind of do independence regardless. So it just worked out. And so we're like, hey, yeah, let's do this. And our thing has always been like, we're very confident in our abilities as singles performers. I think we have our own thing going when we are separate. And he just had one of the probably early match of the year contenders against Alec Price. Like, everybody's talking about that match, and so he's awesome. I think I have my moments where I have these matches, and they're awesome. But I really, honestly, truly feel, and he feels the same way, and a lot of people feel the same way, is that as a tag team, there's just something different about us. When we're together, it's just different. Mm-hmm. I think we stand out from a lot of other tag teams because we look different, we wrestle different. It's just a style thing. There's something about it. And because it's so special and it feels so special to us, it's like we don't want to let it go. So we're going to push for it as long as we can. And so, honestly, that's the main goal, really. Get a contract, that's cool, but I'd rather get a contract with him. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's only one place he's at. He already has a contract. So if I find my way there and we can make that thing work there, then that's what I want to do, because wrestling with him is easy. We make it easy together, and it's fun. There's never a dull moment. And, I always have somebody to fight with, because that's what we'll do in the car or on the plane. So it's good times.
Yeah, if you go there, they might have to ask you to wear a tie and a pants when you wrestle.
Or I could snatch him away from them, and we could do this work horseman thing like we've been doing for like the past 5 years.
I would like to see that more. Yes, I would love to see that one more.
I'll put on a tie if that's what they want. Like, if that makes it work and I can team with him, then I'll do whatever I need to do. But I think we have our own thing going already that could work there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have a whole getup, like a golden blazer. You're gonna have to wear like pants and dress shoes. It'll be perfect for you. I'm sure you'll like it.
Hey, money's money, man.
It's true, man. Hey, man, especially in wrestling, especially in one of the big companies. Do what you gotta do.
People like to complain about I don't know. Fans like to complain about like wrestlers selling out and yada yada. Like, come on, man. Like, you don't own us. Like, it's great that you support us, and like, we appreciate it. We do. But we can wrestle for whoever we want to wrestle for. Whatever is going to be best for us and our family and our life situation. And you should respect that, I feel like. And whether that's us getting on TV and wearing a tie, I'll wear whatever you want me to wear if it works out for me. You know what I mean? And my family. And plus, we get to do it doing what we love to do in professional wrestling. Like, regardless of what the gimmick or what the story or whatever it is, like, we're still doing professional wrestling, and we're making money and supporting our family doing that. Yeah. And so if you support the wrestler, support the wrestler. That's it.
Listen, I'll support you in a blazer and a tie any day, man. Any day. All right.
Hey,
How can people follow
I
you?
appreciate it.
Of any time. How can people follow you? How can people support you? How can people buy your merch? Are you on Cameo? Give out everything that you're on.
You know what's funny is that when I first got released, I tried to get on Cameo and it took forever. I never heard anything back because you got to get like verified through them or whatever. They actually called me back and they verified me, and now I just am too lazy to set the thing up, which is funny. I kind of started it and I haven't finished it, so maybe that should be a thing I do. But I do have it. Maybe I'll start that up. But other than that, follow me on Twitter. That's the main source, honestly. Like, I do some of the other social media, like Instagram, but main one's Twitter. The handle for everything, though, is Antony Henry, which is ANTNY Henry. That's the handle for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. As far as merch goes, I have a Pro Wrestling Tees, same situation. I have not updated that thing in forever, and there are shirts on there, but they're extremely old. So maybe I'll get on that and stop being lazy. See, I talk about getting a contract and doing all these things, but I'm not even really being the hustler, right? Look at me. Well, I guess the important thing is that I go wrestle and I hustle there, right?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I saw a lot of awesome designs that you like on your tights. You got new designs. You got the Horesmen shirt. Who does all your designs?
Yeah. So we've been using pretty much the same designer for all of our stuff for a while. Like all the Horsemen shirts, the former ones, the present one, like same guy. Mark DeGrucci. I think his Twitter's like When I Escaped. I believe so. Mark DeGrucci. But he's a graphic designer. He does a lot of actually other professional wrestlers stuff too. But he's really good. He does all of our Disney themed Horsemen ones and all the ones that I've had as a singles run as well. I have a lot of cool designs. Maybe I just need to, actually make the effort and put them on the website.
Yeah, man, you gotta get up. You gotta start doing. You gotta do some hustling now. Because I want to buy some merch, and I'm sure the people do too.
I appreciate it, and I'll get it out there.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.